In a world where reflections held the key to unlocking the mysteries of the soul, a young woman named Arya stumbled upon a mysterious, ancient mirror. Its surface was cracked and worn, but as she gazed deeper, she sensed an otherworldly energy emanating from within. She felt an inexplicable pull, as if the mirror was beckoning her closer, drawing her into a realm beyond the veil of reality. The air around her began to ripple and distort, like the surface of a pond on a summer's day. Arya's heart pounded in her chest as she hesitated, torn between fascination and fear. And then, without warning, the mirror's surface began to shatter, like 1,000 tiny cracks spreading outward from a central point. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of splintering glass and shattered dreams. Arya's world was about to be turned upside down, and she was powerless to stop it. The shards of the mirror rained down upon the floor, like 1,000 tiny knives slicing through the air. Arya stumbled backward, her eyes fixed on the chaos before her. The room seemed to be shifting and reforming, like a kaleidoscope turning. Colors danced around her, a dizzying array of hues and textures that defied explanation. She felt herself being pulled toward the center of the maelstrom, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling before her eyes. The sound of shattering glass gave way to a low, throbbing hum, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Arya's mind reeled as she struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. She was no longer alone in the room. Something was coming, something that had lain hidden for centuries, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. The air grew colder, the shadows deepening into dark, foreboding pools. Arya's breath came in ragged gasps, as if she was drowning in a sea of uncertainty. She stumbled forward, her eyes fixed on the center of the room, where a figure began to take shape. It was a woman, tall and statuesque, with skin as white as marble and hair as black as the night. Her eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light, a light that seemed to draw Arya in with an irresistible force. The woman's presence filled the room, like a tidal wave crashing over the shore. Arya felt her very soul being pulled toward this mysterious figure, as if she was being drawn into a realm beyond the boundaries of reality. And then, in an instant, the woman vanished, leaving Arya alone and shaken. Arya's world was a jumble of confusion and fear. She stumbled through the room, desperate to make sense of what was happening. But every door she opened led only to more questions, more mysteries waiting to be solved. She felt like a ship without anchor, lost in a stormy sea. And then, in the midst of her chaos, she heard a whisper in her ear. "Look within," it said. "The answer lies within." Arya spun around, but there was no one there. The whisper seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. She felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized that the voice was coming from within her own mind. The mirror had shattered, but the mystery remained intact. Arya was forced to confront the darkest corners of her own soul if she wanted to unlock the secrets of the ancient artifact. Arya sat on the floor, her back against the wall. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she tried to calm her racing mind. The whisper echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that the answer lay within. She began to focus on her own thoughts, trying to penetrate the surface level of her consciousness. But the more she searched, the more she found herself lost in a maze of memories and emotions. Arya's past came flooding back, like a tidal wave crashing over the shore. She remembered her childhood, her parents, her friends. And with each memory, a fragment of her soul was revealed, a piece of herself that she thought she had long forgotten. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was forced to confront the darkest corners of her own heart. The memories danced before her, a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Arya felt herself being pulled into the past, reliving moments she thought she had long forgotten. She saw herself as a child, playing in the park. She saw herself as a teenager, arguing with her parents. And with each memory, a piece of her soul was revealed, a fragment of her own identity that she thought she had lost forever. The whispers in her mind grew louder, a constant reminder that the answer lay within. Arya began to see herself in a new light, a person she had never met before. She was broken, fragmented, and lost. But she was also strong, resilient, and determined. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was forced to confront the darkest corners of her own heart. The memories faded, leaving Arya feeling lost and alone. She opened her eyes, taking a deep breath as she tried to shake off the feeling of disorientation. The room seemed to be shifting and reforming around her, like a kaleidoscope turning. Colors danced around her, a dizzying array of hues and textures that defied explanation. And then, in an instant, the room was still. Arya was left standing in silence, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she had been given a choice that would determine the course of her life forever. She could turn back, retreat into the safety of her own world. Or she could press on, into the unknown, into the very heart of the mystery. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was forced to make a decision, to choose between the familiar and the unknown. Arya's heart was pounding in her chest as she hesitated, torn between fear and fascination. The room seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for her decision. And then, in a flash of insight, she knew what she had to do. She took a step forward, into the unknown, into the very heart of the mystery. The room seemed to shudder and shake, like a leaf in a storm. Colors danced around her, a dizzying array of hues and textures that defied explanation. Arya felt herself being pulled into the abyss, like a ship sailing into the jaws of a hurricane. But she was determined, driven by a fierce desire to unlock the secrets of the ancient artifact. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was ready to face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. She walked deeper into the room, her heart pounding in her chest. The air grew colder, the shadows deepening into dark, foreboding pools. Arya felt herself being pulled toward a central point, a vortex that seemed to be drawing her in with an irresistible force. She stumbled, her feet heavy with fear, but she refused to turn back. She had come too far, sacrificed too much. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was determined to unlock the secrets of the ancient artifact, no matter the cost. And then, in an instant, she was through the vortex, into a realm beyond the boundaries of reality. The world around her was transformed, like a painting rendered in vibrant, living colors. Arya felt herself being reborn, reimagined, redefined. The world around her was alive, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Arya felt herself being drawn into the very heart of the mystery, like a moth to a flame. She saw visions of ancient civilizations, of forgotten knowledge and lost technologies. She saw the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. And with each vision, a piece of her soul was revealed, a fragment of her own identity that she thought she had lost forever. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was being remade, reimagined, redefined. She was becoming something new, something greater than herself. The visions faded, leaving Arya feeling breathless and shaken. She stumbled, her feet heavy with the weight of her newfound knowledge. But she refused to turn back. She had come too far, sacrificed too much. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was determined to unlock the secrets of the ancient artifact, no matter the cost. And then, in an instant, she saw it, the ultimate truth. The world was not what it seemed, a reality constructed from threads of illusion and deception. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was seeing the world as it truly was, a realm beyond the boundaries of reality. The truth was like a knife, cutting through the layers of her own perception. Arya felt herself being transformed, remade, reimagined. She was no longer the same person, no longer the same world. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was becoming something new, something greater than herself. She was becoming the master of her own destiny, the creator of her own reality. The world was hers to shape and mold, to bend and warp to her will. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was ready to face whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. She stepped out of the vortex, back into the world of flesh and blood. The room seemed to shudder and shake, like a leaf in a storm. Colors danced around her, a dizzying array of hues and textures that defied explanation. Arya felt herself being pulled back into her own body, like a ship sailing into the safety of a harbor. She was no longer lost in the labyrinth of her own mind. She was no longer fragmented, broken, and lost. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was whole, complete, and reborn. She looked down at her hands, marveling at the way they seemed to be moving of their own accord. She looked up at the room, taking in the colors and textures that danced around her. Arya felt a sense of wonder, of awe, of pure, unadulterated joy. She had faced her fears, overcome her doubts, and emerged victorious. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya was no longer the same person, no longer the same world. She was reborn, reimagined, redefined. The room faded, leaving Arya standing alone in the silence. She took a deep breath, feeling the stillness of the air fill her lungs. And then, in an instant, she was gone, vanished into the unknown. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. Arya had faced her fears, overcome her doubts, and emerged victorious. She had unlocked the secrets of the ancient artifact, and in doing so, had unlocked the secrets of her own soul. The world would never be the same again, for Arya had become something greater than herself. She had become the master of her own destiny, the creator of her own reality. The mirror had shattered, but the pieces of her own psyche remained intact. And in that moment, Arya knew that she would never be alone again.